It's Monday, August 1st. This is Irish Illustrated Insider. There's going to be some football at the end of this week. I'm Tim Priester with Tim O'Malley and Pete Sampson. And on Friday, August 5th, Notre Dame will open preseason camp 2022. Can stop speculating. Well, we'll continue to speculate, but it'll be a lot better being able to see a little bit of football, see the coaches in action, and looking forward to what will be an extremely exciting 2022 season for Notre Dame, because we don't know what to expect with a new head coach, a pretty difficult slate, and a good football team to play against that group. I want to start segment one here with Notre Dame's video. I think we were all a little bit surprised when we saw the hangover video that Marcus Freeman and his players and the Golics recorded. Just your guys' thoughts on Notre Dame's artistry.
The production value, I thought, was incredibly high for
Very
that.
good.
Great. Yeah.
As it has been, like, they did those commitment videos where, like, we got them things. Like, the production value on that is incredibly high. They have some really talented people in that department, Fighting Irish Media over there. So it wasn't only the production value. I was like, wow, they spent a lot of money on this. Like, it's not free to go to Vegas to do that kind of thing.
Right.
So did they have they didn't have another reason to go to Vegas?
Yeah, exactly. They couldn't find, maybe they just, like, you know what, we'll go out, we're going to bet it all on green 00, and then we'll fund the video that way, because you always win when you bet green 00. So I thought it was great. The only thing it was missing was a real baby.
Yeah, my favorite part was Mayer falling down and Golic Jr. saying, I thought Golic Jr. delivered that line perfectly, man. That was really well done.
Was Mayer into it all, or what, man?
Oh yeah,
he was fully invested.
I thought Foskey, after the first awkward line, shined the rest of the way through, though, in terms of his acting chops. The first one was terrible, and he's like, "Come on, coach!" but then I really liked it. It was good, and they got the right guys to do it too. The jumping up and down were the best three friends was really funny, and that was well done. I was wondering how far they were going to go with that top of the roof scene. They could have gone a little bit farther with some of the dialogue, but it's a good thing they didn't.
Yeah, I don't normally comment on uniforms. I like them. I think it's creative. I think it's simple but creative. Your thoughts on the uniforms? I saw Mike Farrell from a competitor, I think, offered a thumbs down on Notre Dame's.
I like the white ones. I like them when they played Arizona State. I like them when they played at Michigan in, I can't remember if it was 11. Yeah, it must have been 11.
It was 11. Yeah.
I
can see Gary Gray.
For alternative uniforms, those have been my three favorite ones. They've all been white. So this one is high on list. And, I didn't need more like Vegas. I didn't need like the suits of the cards on there, like, to go Yankees pinstripe style to really, like, drive home the point of where you are. So it was clean and straightforward. And I like the white.
I love how they, they're real careful to point out, like, the nuances of it, which 99.9999% of the people have no idea or will not recognize it or have any idea about it. But
this
a lot
of represents an 1842 candle. It's not.
I think that's good stuff, but I'm not sure that it's going to resonate a whole lot with the fans that are watching the game.
I have two thoughts on the uniform, as I do every August. I like this one, and I don't care.
That's generally kind of how I feel. I have a couple of I have three of the mini helmets from Shamrock Series games.
I have to tell you,
really the only three that I like, and
I think I did not like the pinstripe one when I saw it, and in retrospect, that has grown on me. I kind of liked it. Yeah, I thought it looked cool now.
I really like
really weird when they showed it to us the first time.
You guys are
really like
just wrong.
I know. Okay, your taste. It's like my taste buds are better than your taste buds. This taste.
It was. I will agree. It was better during the game than it was on a mannequin, but it was just worse.
It was very bad on a mannequin. I will give you that. The mannequin.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I get offended when I see people wearing it around the stadium as if, like, that's a memento you should have.
Okay, on to more important things. Keon Keeley, Peyton Bowen made visits elsewhere this weekend. It's concerning. There's no other way to look at that, what are your thoughts on Keeley sticking with Notre Dame and Peyton Bowen sticking with Notre Dame?
I think that Keeley is much, much more important to stick. I think that Keeley is more likely to stick, but I would agree that the concern level is quite high for both.
Agree with everything you said. I would say Keeley is much more likely to stick in the end. But way more important, and I think we touched on this the last time we did a podcast. We're talking about Notre Dame maybe going 11-1, and we named DJ Brown, Ramon Henderson, Houston Griffith, Xavier Watts as the safeties. It's pretty important to have that defensive line intact, and Keon Keeley is the difference maker for that. Not that Notre Dame doesn't need to recruit better safeties. It's awesome that they got Peyton Bowen and had been recruiting better safeties. If you've seen some of Kevin Sinclair's rundowns on safety recruiting of Brian Kelly's era and mine and Monday Musings, but I don't think you can compare the two in terms of importance.
Yeah, I don't like to put it in those terms. I know what you guys are saying. I agree. I mean, Keeley it's an edge rusher. I mean, it's an edge rusher. It's a great edge rusher, and that is a priority every time. But Keeley's decision and Bowen's decision, they have nothing to do with one another.
That's true.
So that's why I don't like to put it in those terms. But I do think that their chances are best with Keeley. But I mean, this one would really, really hurt. Bowen would hurt. That Keeley would really, really hurt. You don't have a plug-in solution to that in the class, especially at this point. And I know people get upset about, the kid's been committed all this time and you should have given him warning. If you're Keon Keeley, or let's say Keon Keeley's your son, 17 years old, 18 years old, and he says, man, I really want to go there instead of here. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard. It's very difficult for me to have anger towards a young kid that makes that
you
decision.
shouldn't have anger towards it. Yeah.
No, you shouldn't. But, I think there's a good chance Keeley sticks. There are 1,000 people that know better than I do with that comment, but I think we're all in agreement that, he was both feet in with Notre Dame. I still think that he still wants Notre Dame. We don't know what happened this weekend, but that'd be a tough loss for Notre Dame. Dylan Edwards verbally decommitted from Kansas State.
What a traitor. Can't believe anybody would have to leave their school and go
First, the loyalty.
Yeah.
Audric Estime. I mean, there's so many that you can mention, but we don't look at it. Notre Dame fans don't look at the same way when the shoe's on the other foot. But Dylan Edwards is really fast, guys.
Yeah, I was texting with Kevin Sinclair about this, and it's like I sort of view it like I hesitate to say like boom or bust, but like I think he could be very impactful, or he could just be like, wow, it's a small running back, small slot receiver. So it's like I think it's somebody that you would take 10 times out of 10 because you can't coach speed. But I don't know how many 5'8" impactful players there are at college. Like there are some for sure. One of them played at Kansas State, but that's like that's like you got to be creative in how you use them to maximize that potential if and when he flips or commits to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's excuse me. He makes so much sense to bring aboard, but it's not like you get Dylan Edwards and then you're set at running back for 4 years. But it's exactly what you want in your offense, though. You want to add that to your offense. Yeah.
No, you want 3 running backs, and you already have Jaden Lamar. But you're going to have to pair Lamar and Edwards with somebody like Jeremiah Love, and that's not going to be easy. Pete, I don't know what the latest you've heard on Jeremiah Love, but I mean that's not going to be easy.
No, it's I think that the kid is. It's a rare instance that I think the kid is more inclined to commit to Notre Dame than maybe the family or the dad. So I mean, I think we talked about this with Dante Moore. It's like when you're getting into recruiting fights with Oregon or Texas A&M, Miami, you better know what you're in for there. And that's what they're in with Jeremiah Love. It's just A&M instead of Oregon in this case.
And it does feel like those are the 3 right now. I'm sure there's another one we don't know about, but it does feel like those are the 3 where it's a different kind of fight.
Yeah, and if you get those three, then
Oh,
then
gosh.
it's a real then it's a strength of the class, I think. But you have to have a Jeremiah Love type talent at the head of that list to say that. Now, quarterback situation, Notre Dame appears to be on the outside looking in now for Austin Novosad. Kenny Minchie is verbally committed to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has 17 verbal commits. Kenny Minchie is the highest rated one there, the quarterback out of Tennessee. I said that Pat Narduzzi's head would explode if Kenny Minchie decommitted from Pittsburgh and joined Notre Dame, because we know his reaction to Jordan Addison leaving Pittsburgh.
Hey, it's a real shame. He just put it back together after Jordan Addison left.
Yeah. You know, on Narduzzi, because he's our second favorite topic behind bad defensive coordinators from the Carolinas. I was asked I filled out One Foot Down's survey on the season, and one of the questions was, if you care to answer which opposing head coach will lose his mind after losing to Notre Dame, and I put in Pat Narduzzi, even though they don't play him, because I think at some point this year he's going to lose his mind over Notre Dame. So I think that's going to count if I get that right. I like Minchie. I think, I'm not going to say who I like him better than, but I think Tim and I talked about it right before this podcast. It looks so there's like an ease of motion and effortlessness that I'm intrigued by. And I like the fact that they have CJ Carr in 2024, to be honest.
I think it would be fine. Like if I realized Novosad was sort of like the bigger name coming out of the Elite 11, but Minchie did well out there too.
Right.
I feel like either of the two is fine. I realize like the process feels a little bit backward, but
that's why I made the Carr point. That's why I think either of the two is fine.
Yeah, but if you get the end result, you're fine. You're good.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I like Minchie he is pro style. He's mobile. He can run, but he really does not want to. He wants to drop back and throw it. And Tim, you're right. I mean, the ball comes off his hand so easily. The throwing motion is so easy. And I think he's a guy that I use this sometimes. He's got a long arm, but I don't know how strong it is. He can throw the ball deep. But I don't know that we see a lot of video out there where he's just rifling the football. Yeah. But I like him. I mean, I think if you can, at this stage of the process, if you can turn the number 317 composite prospect on 24/7 Sports, that would be a hell of a catch. I really like the way, when he gets flushed to his right, he throws the ball effectively, accurately. He's got a great touch. You'd love to be a receiver catching a football from Kenny Minchie.
Yeah.
Very, very catchable ball. So we'll see what happens with that. To wrap up segment one, on Friday, I was at Penn High School when Notre Dame received a verbal commitment from, you guys are talking about small, in relation to Dylan Edwards. Marcus Burton's a point guard from local Penn High School. He verbally committed to Notre Dame over, really, like Miami of Ohio, Ball State. The offers did not come flowing for him. And a lot of it has to do with his size, but he can play. He averaged 27 a game last year. Are there better high school basketball conferences in the country? Yeah, but there's usually quite a bit of talent in the NIC, which is why Mike Bray continues to mine that conference.
I was surprised at the speed in which it went from, oh, there's an offer. I like that offer. That's intriguing. And all of a sudden he was committed to Notre Dame. But it's kind of like it's a take for me again. And it's a take for me because he can score and he's quick.
What's the worst thing? I don't understand the reaction to it. I mean, what's the worst thing? Mike Bray's not going to fill up the roster with scholarship players, and what's the worst thing?
Triple take in that, if you look at it that way.
There's no downside to this. Other than he doesn't develop, but players don't develop every year. A kid like that, again, speed. You're talking about speed, infusion of speed and quickness. Will he have difficulty defending? Yeah, probably, because he's only, he's 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing, but he can play basketball. And I don't know that there was a great urgency to make it happen, but Mike Bray wanted to make it happen.
Yeah.
He had lunch with with Marcus Burton, and it was over. And they announced it on Friday.
I mean, the Bray local recruiting thing is, he's not afraid to stick his neck out there for a lower rated prospect who's local. So it seems like kind of a classic Bray take in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, his video is very quick, seems like have a good handle, gets to the basket, like could just kind of like I don't know, like a rec league style game. I don't know. Just does a lot of different things well.
I mean, I would call him a shoot first point guard right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you average 27, you're shooting. And a lot of times he gets in the lane and when in doubt, he shoots, but he also creates, even at his size, he has the ability to create space. Now that space won't be as big in the ACC, but he does have that ability to, when it's time to make a decision to shoot or pass, he creates space for himself to shoot.
He does, and they often don't. Like, just because Wesley could do it and Starling can do it, they often don't have the guy that can create space at point guard. And you can, on one hand, in 22 years, name the 5 point guards that were really good on defense for Notre Dame too. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not.
So when they go against Trevor Keels from Duke, who's 6'4", 220 as a freshman, the guards aren't going to do well. It doesn't matter if he's fast or if he's a good one. So it's okay. They are shopping down a different aisle, man. He's not going to get every JJ Starling out there. So I don't mind to take it all.
Now and look, it's just a start to their class. There are some other guys that are out there. RJ Jones, TJ Power, who I've loved since I saw him sometime last year. That right now that I put out a master list on Friday, it's not a real long master list, so they may have to add to it at some point. But if they were to get TJ Power and RJ Jones, I really love him. El Marco Jackson. I don't know if you've seen him, but I don't think they're going to get him. And then if you put Burton as the third guy there, the plan is get 3 recruits and get two transfers at the end of the season.
I love it.
Are they not? I haven't really followed this detail. Are they not involved with Aiden Holloway from LaLue anymore?
They were, but Aiden Holloway disappeared from LaLue.
Oh.
He's gone. He's playing in
that case.
Yeah, I mean he left La Lumiere and did not tell anybody at La Lumiere he was leaving. So
it doesn't bode well for Notre Dame recruiting.
That kind of tells you a little bit about the communication there. And so Holloway is out now. I think Bray's feeling on that is that, we got one stud from there. Two might be asking for a little much. And Holloway he left La Lumiere. So he's not in play. Segment 2 coming up, Burning Up the Boards. Segment 2, Burning Up the Boards, is sponsored by Circa Sports. The biggest pro football overlays in Vegas are back with $12 million in guaranteed prizes only at Circa Sports, with 2 ways to win and no rake. Circa Sports Million with quarterly payouts and 100% payback. Play Circa Survivor and select one team each week with no point spread. Take in the big money with $12 million in guaranteed prizes. Enter in Vegas, play from anywhere. Visit circasports.com for details. Segment 2 here, Burning Up the Boards. We start with a question from T. Karras. Who is not full go out of the returning veterans when practice starts this weekend?
I just went over this on the weekend, so I have the guarantees. And then we have one question mark. Joe Wilkins, Liz Frank surgery. Mitchell Evans with summertime 5th metatarsal surgery. Logan Diggs, shoulder. We assume Joey Tenona in the post-concussion situation. And obviously Jadarian Price. That's the offense. And then defense, it's only Aiden Kayanai and then ACL from April, I believe. And our question mark is Avery Davis.
What did you say about Diggs?
Diggs is not full go for the beginning of camp.
Shoulder. Oh, okay, right, yeah, but he is expected back within a month.
He'd be the first guy expected back of that Wilkins, Evans,
correct.
Diggs, list.
Yeah, Davis, it was kind of.
He seemed like he'd be ready, but it just wasn't ready. We talked on June 27th. He wasn't ready.
That was end of June, yeah.
It's August 5th.
Doubt. Patterson's fine. Shrouth is fine. Jason Adamalola, we presume, is fine as well. So
Cam Hart back.
Yep.
Cam Hart is back. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Eli Raridan has been cleared for full participation. as well. Question from G.
Really, Tim, sorry to interrupt. Really, the
That's
only
right.
guy that if Davis isn't ready August 5th, he's the only guy that could be ready August 25th of all those guys we mentioned too, for the guys that are out. The rest of the guys are out for a while.
Right. Question from GR Irish Fan 22. Do you expect the coaches to give Drew Pine a legitimate chance to earn his starting quarterback spot in camp and get an equal number of reps as Buckner? Or is it already a foregone conclusion that it's Buckner's job and thus he will get a majority of the reps?
Figure it's like last year, Pete. Do you, Jack Cohn and Drew Pine battled it out for 5 practices, and Brian Kelly said, "Oh no, we know who our starter is." And then, but they got, those first 5 practices. You should take a look. That's why you have 3 quarterbacks. That's what it's for.
Yeah, I could see Freeman being cagey is the wrong word, but like less forthright than Kelly was about it last year. Like maybe almost like, hey, wherever this ongoing competition, even though Tyler Buckner is getting the first team reps every day.
Competition type of that. He'll keep saying
foregone conclusion might be a little strong, but Buckner's the guy.
Yeah.
Buckner's the guy they want to go with.
Yeah,
Buckner has the higher upside.
Their head coaches all across the country, they're dealing with a similar scenario. You certainly don't declare it in the spring. And certainly the first 7 days, probably the reps are equal, maybe even 10 days. But the writing's on the wall. I mean, the Drew Pine is the perfect guy in relief.
Yes,
right?
It's his role at Notre. That's a good role for him at Notre Dame.
Yeah, he just is. And it doesn't.
And one of the reasons because he's not leaving. Like that's a thing now. Drew Pine's not going anywhere.
Right. He'll graduate and go somewhere because he can even play somewhere. But he's
not
a great
this year.
guy to have there. Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
Next from Frank, 1957. Do you feel confident that the wide receivers will be a strength or just average?
I would have a difficult time
using a third option.
Strength.
You need a third option.
I'd have a difficult time using the word strength. However, I mean, if the following players are healthy, Lindsey, Styles, Davis, Merriweather, I mean, you have the foundation of a pretty decent receiving core, and then Thomas and Colsey fit in after that. I wouldn't say a strength. It's more likely to be considered just average than a strength. Would you agree with that?
I think they could improve to just average. And I think that the staff would be like, all right, we'll take that. It's a development year for the position, especially with Styles, Colsey, Thomas, and Merriweather, and move forward. But a strength of the team is not, I don't think that's in the cards this year.
Good news is the best receiver on the team is the best tight end in the country. So that helps out too.
Yep.
Yeah, and Tyree catches the ball well. You don't have to just look at the wide receiver core, and Tommy Reese has got to be creative with his running backs, and he will be. He showed that he does that.
You have mentioned, I don't want to harp on this, but you mentioned the receivers, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all of them. There's no surprise receiver coming along. They have 6 scholarship receivers right now. One of them we're not sure about starting the season. Although he probably will. Avery Davis, we don't have any new information on Avery Davis. I assume he'll be able to start the season.
Yeah, and the reality is if you had 10 bodies, the last 4 probably wouldn't play.
Probably not, but they would get to play all of practice and all of the season when they're repping. Like that's the big deal.
No doubt about that.
Irish B, what white lie will the coaching staff tell us this year? Last year it was, this made me laugh. We were pleasantly surprised with Jack Cohn's mobility. I don't remember that, but that was an outright.
I think I do remember Tommy Reese saying, he's more mobile than you might think. The reason I put this question after the one from Frank 1957 was that you can count it as a white lie when you hear somebody say we've got enough depth at wide receiver.
Yes, that's right. Considering the spring, they said they didn't. There was honesty at some point where we're talking like the defensive backs and defensive back coaches were like, "Oh, we just don't have enough guys to rep against our defensive backs right now." It hasn't changed.
Yeah, there was no getting around that.
That's why Connor Radigan will get a ton of reps, and Matt Salerno will get a ton of reps. And Salerno
is a scholar.
Really, you really should consider him in the top. You have to consider him in the top 7. He's a slot receiver. He's in the mix. He will play. So that's the top 7.
Just don't let Ohio State know that, because that's going to ruin the whole surprise game plan that Salerno's in there in the slot.
They'll have to.
And Ohio
Ohio
State
State will have to
Yep.
rip up their game
Playbook.
plan. And
So what other white lie do we have? I think Pete's might be right about this is competition every day with Tyler Buckner.
Yeah, that could be
Yeah.
one early. Trying to think of what else would really fit there, because
I guess
I don't.
He's been up front about the kicking game, so
Yeah.
I don't think he's white lie on that one.
No, not much an upside there. I don't know if there are a lot of other positions where you're trying to like manage expectations, public, like outwardly. You know, for like Tim mentioned this in the first segment, for how many unknowns there are, we sort of like know who the first 22 are going to be at most of the position. Like, there's not
They have a lot of
like,
knowns.
starting jobs up for grabs. So I don't think we're probably not overanalyzing the like, oh, what did he say about Holden Stays? Like or like an Alex Bars, he's the best guard I've coached in 25 years. Brian Kelly from 6 years ago or whenever that was. So
Steve
probably
Elmer,
not gonna have anything like
15-year starter, Steve Elmer at tackle.
provided he wanted to continue playing football, which I'm sure Steve Elmer's doing. We should check in with Steve Elmer.
I'm
sure
guessing Steve Elmer made the right
quite
choice,
well.
missing that 2016
He's doing
season and
just
going
fine.
on with his career.
I agree. Question from Irish fan 425. How far do you think Marcus Freeman has progressed as a head coach since the bowl game, specifically in-game adjustments and managing the clock?
Yeah, probably they didn't coach any games since the bowl game. So as much as he studied it, and I mean, you guys might have asked him this exact question that I asked him. It's just like, you can prepare for all this stuff. When the lights go on, it's a little different. You're making a million decisions, and also like, how many different unique scenarios have we seen in 15, 20 years covering Notre Dame football? Like all sorts of
every
weird,
year
like
there's
can't
something every year.
prepare for everything.
No. So Brian
This
Kelly,
is really one of Brian Kelly's great strengths. I mean, they're like 30-year. I've been doing this for 32 years, and we'd be like, all right, but this is where this really shows up. He's seen every scenario, and he would still botch some of them.
Oh yeah, Brian. Yeah, he sure did. But Brian Kelly mentioned in his first or second year, and I thought it was an intriguing thing, and eventually he stopped talking about it. He had a list of 47 unique scenarios that he had encountered that he wasn't prepared for in his career coming to Notre Dame. And like that, think about that. So over his first 22 years of coaching, he had encountered 47 scenarios that at the end of the year, he's like, okay, this is how I should have handled that, or I'm glad I handled it this way. I'm never going to waver from that. You just cannot prepare for that. My question with Freeman is, I wonder what he is going to delegate in these categories. Like, managing the clock is really hard. Is there going to be a plan for managing the clock when I know they have a 4-minute plan and a 2-minute plan? That's not when it's hard. It's hard to manage the clock, as Pete pointed out, 2 minutes before the first half when you're rolling and scoring too fast. Is there such a thing as scoring too fast? Well, there is against Ohio State. Because if they get the ball right back, they're going to score again. So they're tough ones. There's tougher ones out there than we have 4 minutes left, run our 4-minute offense. It's like we have 11 minutes left and we have a 10-point lead against a great offense. Now what do we do?
I would recommend Al Golden. I would encourage Al Golden to be, if I were Marcus Freeman, I would encourage Al Golden to be in my ear whenever he felt it was necessary.
Yeah.
Because you get in those situations and you can't think straight. I felt that way having been a baseball guy my whole life, coaching a baseball game that 12 people were watching.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Let alone,
It really
it's like, I know what to do, but wow, I got to make a decision right now. Multiply that by 1 billion times, and that's what he's dealing with. And that's why I would say, I would encourage Al, you got something to say to me, say it. Don't hesitate to suggest it, because when you're in that situation, it just might not come to mind as you're thinking about all the things that you have to, all the moving parts. And
you don't have to take the advice, but the advice was given to you.
That is exactly it. It doesn't mean I'm going to take the advice, but I want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important for him.
Like, I asked Freeman specifically about the end of the first half of the Fiesta Bowl when I sat down in the summer. And I mean, he not he called out Tommy Reese, but like he said, in the future, Reese knows we got to run the ball in that situation, the sort of and goal with a few minutes left, take some time off the clock. It was a game, they scored a touchdown on the possession, I think 2 plays later, but it's just like you're just checking one thing off of a million checklist thing. So it's tough to have that all under control if you've coached for 32 years, never mind one game.
All right. So how long before each of us hears a comment or reads a comment about Marcus Freeman being in over his head?
End of the first quarter of Ohio State.
Within the first quarter.
Definitely the first half. Definitely the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it won't be accurate. Or it will be accurate, but nobody will know because we don't know yet. That's the whole point.
We were told that he was in over his head in the first half against Florida State last year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Second half at least, yeah.
Not going to overreact like that. Just think about this. Think about the overreactions that are about to come with Tyler Buckner. I mean, he's going to throw interceptions.
Yes.
He's going to throw at least 8 interceptions and maybe 12.
Sure, he's going to throw more than Ian Book. He's going to throw more than Ian Book and Jack Cohn.
Yes, because that's what young quarterbacks do. But we're going to hear that one real early, and we'll laugh about it and talk about it on a podcast again.
Well, Tim, to your point on that, I don't want to belabor this, but when you asked him, what do you need to see from your starting quarterback in camp? The first thing he said was protect the football. Don't turn the football over,
right.
Which means he's still looking for that.
Very true. Yeah, no, very true. And I think that goes for both quarterbacks. Question from Drew 2000. I understand the optimism around Harry Hiestand, the offensive line, but even under Harry before, there were plenty of times in big games where the offensive line underwhelmed, specifically as it relates to run blocking. How do you think Notre Dame's offensive line performs against Ohio State, BYU, Clemson, and USC?
I have a quick answer here, and then you guys follow up. I think Notre Dame's offensive line is going to struggle mightily against Clemson in a slugfest because everybody that encounters Clemson's defensive line is going to struggle mightily against that defensive line this year. And the real key is how they do against Ohio State, because and it's their first game, but they have to be able to win. They have to be able to win that matchup, even though it's a tough one to win. And
I would agree.
Yeah. And then BYU, if you're
BYU
an offensive line,
BYU is like, I want to see them physically take it to a mature opponent that you're better than. That to me is classic BYU. That's a game where the offensive line really has to deliver. So that I feel like I will take away more from BYU than I would Ohio State, and Clemson is just like a different animal entirely. It's like
totally.
When people say that the offensive line struggled against Georgia in 2017, really? Tell me more about this offensive line struggling against one of the great all-time defenses with Roquan Smith and a game plan where Brandon Wimbush threw it 40 times. Tell me more about how the offensive line struggled run blocking.
Yeah, I'm going to use a baseball analogy, and that great pitching beats great hitting. Great defense beats great offense.
Yes.
A great defense. If it's a great defensive line against a great offensive line, the great defensive line is going to win a majority of the time. I believe that.
I'm with you completely. And I wrote down the games where not only Harry Hiestand, but Notre Dame's offensive line struggled in the big games where you needed them not to running the ball. So Clemson 2015 is extremely high on this list because they got behind because they couldn't run the ball. And then they threw for a ton of yards and came back and almost tied the game. Georgia, of course, Pete mentioned. The one where fans have a gripe is the Miami game later that year. Notre Dame's offensive line needed to dominate Miami's defensive line, even though they had a lot of good players on defensive line. That's the one where you think, all right, our pros need to be better than your pros. And they weren't. I thought Ohio State 2015 and the Fiesta Bowl, there's a bunch of pros on Ohio State, a bunch of pros on Notre Dame. And, they didn't answer the bell there either. So that's a fair one. And then finally, Tim, like we were talking about the Alabama loss, the recent one, you dive into the film and you think, all right, this is the best offense I've ever seen. Let's see if they can get them somewhere, right? And then you look at Alabama's defensive line, and you're like, oh, gosh. All right, well, their defensive line is better than Notre Dame's best thing, which is their offensive line. So you're out of luck. That's what Clemson is. They have to beat Clemson not by totally dominating them up front in November.
No, agreed. And there's going to be a lot of offensive lines that are struggling against Notre Dame's defensive line. I'm not making excuses I'm not trying to make excuses for Ari Easton, but you can't be great. You can't be dominant every game. Now, Joe Moore, Joe Moore and Notre Dame
But
generally
they were
what
not the most important loss. They were smothered by the best defensive line I've ever seen.
true.
Right.
Right. True. So you're not going to dominate every time out, but Clemson's got a great defensive line. Ohio State has a very, very, very good defensive line. Notre Dame should win the battle up front against BYU. And I want to see USC because, I mean, the roster is so different.
Yeah.
It's so hard. They have 21 transfers. Most of them are skill position guys, but I mean, they're going to be way better on the defensive line. I just think I need to see USC play. I don't know what, by the time Notre Dame plays them, 11 games in, then you'll know. But right now, we really don't know exactly what they're going to have up front. Matthew J. Bowles asks, what is your August 1 opinion of Notre Dame's defensive line versus Ohio State's offensive line? I think Notre Dame has to win the matchup, i.e. pressure Stroud, minimize the running game in order to win that game.
Totally agree. I mean, that's like whenever people ask me about the Ohio State game, I say that's the matchup Notre Dame has to dominate and win situationally to have a chance to win the game. If Notre Dame's defensive line is not great in that game, it's hard for me to see the path how Notre Dame wins.
Yeah, I think if Notre Dame's defensive line isn't great, maybe the best unit on the field, it's tough if you just consider Ohio State skill positions, but I don't see a way of covering if Notre Dame's defensive line isn't great in that game. And then on the flip side, I think, as I said, the offensive line has to win. I don't think they're going to go out and dominate Ohio State's defensive line on the road at night, but they got to win. They got to be able to make it easier on Tyler Buckner, the first-time starter.
I can't even say dominate for that situation. I mean, play better than. I do think that. I think Notre Dame's offensive line against Ohio State's defensive line is better equipped than Ohio State's offensive line against Notre Dame's defensive line.
I think so too.
Agree with that? I mean, it's not it's not an overwhelming.
No, it's not
difference.
Pete made a good point when he said not only maybe not the word dominate, but dominate situationally. Ohio State gets to the Notre Dame 35 and has 3rd and 4, and all of a sudden it's a sack as opposed to a conversion. And it makes them want to go for it do they go for it on 4th and 11 in no man's land? All right, well, you take your chances if they're going for it on 4th and 11, right? That's how you got to win this game. I mean, Ohio State, they're going to pile up yards. There'll be plenty of yards by Ohio State.
Notre Dame has to be okay with.
Yep.
Yeah. If there is an advantage, it's what I said there. But man, I'm not sure how distinct that advantage is.
From DL Call 01. Did I get that right?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
I struggled with because I don't always give you the exact. I'm trying to help us pronounce it, but that didn't help much.
Anyway, he has a good question for this very strong Notre Dame team. How many freshmen will play significant minutes? Over under, he sets is 6.5.
I don't know exactly the definition of significant minutes, but just spitballing it, 6.5. I would say under. I mean, I would definitely say under because Merriweather and Mickey.
I would say under too. I just looked at the
probably
freshmen.
Play the most. As we look at it right now, I think Raritan has a chance to play a lot.
Payne now has to get in September.
Payne's on the list. McPherson's certainly a possibility on the list. I think Tuihalamaka. I don't know. He's a third team Mike probably.
He probably plays significant minutes if either Bauer or Bertrand gets hurt. Then you figure he plays significant minutes.
Yes, but over 6.5, I think that's a little high.
I would definitely bet the under on that one because it's Price would have been significant minutes.
Yeah,
maybe he's replaced by Payne, so it's a wash, like you said. But like Merriweather, Mickey, and I could see one of the two tight ends having significant minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? They have to because they don't have enough receivers. So one of the two tight ends is doing it.
As we look at it right now, Merriweather far and away is the guy that gets the most reps.
Yeah.
Even more than Mickey because it's still going to be a bit of a timeshare. Even if Mickey let's say Mickey emerged in the starting lineup, it would still be a bit of a timeshare there, unless it was, due to injury. Question from Dasher B9. Here we go. See, I don't know how to pronounce it. What would you expect to see with a Tyler Buckner led offense that maybe we didn't see with Jack Cohn or even Ian Book at quarterback?
I mean, the Jack Cohn differential, we don't even need to discuss. That's massive difference. But I think Pete got into a little bit in the spring when he was talking about you're going to have a lot more pre-snap motion where the ball, Buckner has the option to hand it on the jet. He then has a true read option to keep or give it away to the running back. And then as soon as he keeps it, he has the option to throw it downfield. It's kind of what it's why I think they quote unquote name or stop looking at Drew Pine as the starter, because you got to go Buckner's special in that way. That the offense is not the same if it's Drew Pine. He's just a guy that can keep it once in a while and run for 10 yards like he did against Cincinnati. But Buckner can run for 600 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, the quad option is going to be the big, hope if Notre Dame's offense, hits its marks or overachieves or, basically if the fan base watches the offense, they'll be like, yeah, I like what I'm watching. I think there's going to be a lot of quad option from Tyler Buckner.
Yeah, and in accordance with that, I think red zone offense. I think Notre Dame should be difficult to stop in the red zone, and a lot of it is because of what Tyler Buckner can do. A veteran offensive line or an improving offensive line. You've got a great tight end. You've got a freshman receiver now with size. I think the biggest difference, although they did improve in the red zone last year from the previous year, is that. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, I think you're going to see with a Tyler Buckner-led offense, you're going to see more interceptions than Cohn and Book threw.
Yeah, that's natural, but you also see more big plays, so that's than Book had. NJL Irish. I'll go in order here. I'll read them off to you guys. What is one thing you expect each position coach and coordinator to bring differently than their predecessor? We'll start running back. McCullough versus Lance Taylor.
He is not that Taylor didn't emphasize it, but McCullough is all about between the tackles and hitting it up in there and not dancing, which we saw with Kyron Williams and Logan Diggs. We saw a lot of dancing and hesitating, and I'm not saying that that's bad because that's a modern day approach to running the football. But I think with McCullough, it's going to be a greater emphasis on just pounding it up in there.
I enjoyed Kyron Williams cutting it back against North Carolina.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
But less so Diggs standing there looking for a hole that didn't materialize against Oklahoma State. Right?
Yeah, that wasn't as good.
I'm going to lob Pete a softball here on the next one. Stuckey versus Alexander. What's the difference, Pete?
Recruiting would be the difference. And I think we're already seeing that. I have nothing else.
Energy on the football field.
Right. That's a good call, Tim.
A significant difference.
Tight end is tougher, probably. Parker versus McNulty. We'll tell you next year when the tight end's gone.
I'm not really sure what to say there. I'm not really sure.
I mean, you lose the sort of like advisor role for Reese that McNulty had. So I think Parker's a good coach, but I think Reese and McNulty just sort of saw the game the same way and like could finish each other's sentences.
Right.
So that's a hard thing to replace.
Yeah, I don't think we know Jared Parker well enough to speculate too much. We had one opportunity to visit with him, but I don't think that I can throw anything out there. Okay, Pete, you just said recruiting. I would say technique with Heastan.
It's not you saying it. It's everybody that's ever played for or had a son that's played for either one of them. Technique.
Played for them right now, even.
Yeah. We can't say that enough.
Not hard to get that feedback when you ask around some of the current offensive line.
It might be a bigger disparity than recruiting between Stuckey and Alexander. Actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this one's going to help right now.
That's true too. That's a nice thing. Defensive coordinator Golden Freeman. This is a great one. Think about that. Because it's also linebackers coach. Wow, that's a good one.
I mean, you just have to point to Golden's experience in the NFL. I know a lot of the defensive players were talking in spring about, there's more defense, but it's understandable. Not that Freeman was lacking anything there necessarily, but with the background in the NFL, a little bit more cutting edge.
I think the way of looking at this is Freeman installed most of it, And Golden has the benefit of smart veteran players where he can enhance it. So I hope Golden's early season defense looks a heck of a lot better than Marcus Freeman's early season defense did last year. We were surprised by that, remember?
That's
Yeah.
a good
Oh, yeah.
that's a good point. That I mean, Golden is, especially with linebackers, walking into like, this is as good as it's gonna get. I mean, you've got like 3 very high football IQ players, and then you've got Maris Liafau, who's older, hasn't played a whole lot, but he brings something too. So it's like, you're not, most years you don't have Jack Kaiser and JD Bertrand. You always have one of those kinds of guys, but rarely do you have 2.
And you have better players in front of them. That kind of helps them be good linebackers too.
I mean, in theory, you should have both of them next year too. So
right. Defensive line would be Al Washington and Mike Elston.
I don't know if there's much of a difference to be. I don't know. Like, are the techniques going to be different? Whatever Mike Elston taught was pretty effective.
I think I mean, I generally agree with you. I think it might be a little bit more. I think Elston was a little bit more. Don't make a huge mistake. I think Washington's a little bit more get up field.
Yeah.
And let your linebackers, clean up what you can't. Does that lend itself to maybe a few more 20-yard runs? I don't know. But I think Washington's a little bit more aggressive just in general.
And finally, Tim Priester, Mason, and Brian Polian.
Well, I thought, why are you saying that? I thought Polian was,
because it's off the field. I mean, Polian did a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought Polian did a very solid job as Notre Dame's special teams coordinator. You say special teams, and it encompasses so many things. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, and for a special teams coordinator, you're responsible for a lot, including a kicker missing a kick, which
is ridiculous because
as
Pete and I joked in the 2017 practice where Polian went to talk to Yoon after missing a 55-yarder off the left upright. Yeah, I think he's going to be okay. Just maybe go ahead and go talk to somebody else that needs help in your crew, because Justin Yoon's going to figure this out.
However, I mean, different story with when it's Josh Bryan and Blake Groupie.
Oh, I know. Now it's harder. Much harder now.
You have to be a special teams coach for the kicker.
Yeah.
You can't just like, hey, go work on your golf swing off to the side. So
Blake Groupie's on the Lou Groza Award watch list. So what?
Wow.
Oh, so everything's good. Yeah.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong? But block kicks. I mean, Cincinnati
right.
tied for the national lead in block kicks last year.
I mean, they won they won 3 games on special teams last year.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. And he's got a bunch of talent from which to choose. So it'll be interesting. But, I mean, I don't, is it an upgrade at every new coach an upgrade?
Yeah, it won't prove to be that way.
I wouldn't go
Never
that far.
has. I don't know if it ever has anywhere. That's being realistic.
Yeah. All right. Question from Pink Robots. When all is said and done, who will be the story of fall camp?
Is it like other than Tyler Buckner?
Yeah, other than Tyler Buckner, because that's the story of fall camp.
I don't know if he will be the story of fall camp. I've been on the Riley Mills hype train for a while, so I'll stay on that, and then to either Mills or Merriweather. And those are like the best. Those are positive stories of fall camp.
Yeah.
There's obviously the alternative option as well.
Very close to you. Mine is defensive line versus offensive line. Since the defensive line is a known, is the offensive line right there with them? Can we watch by the end of camp and say, wow, the offensive line just looks like they are actually able to handle one of the country's best defensive lines?
That would be huge.
And then I was going to say Merriweather, but I don't want to overhype the.
Yeah, I think we'd all say that. I think Brandon Joseph is going to look every bit as good as he is. I think if indeed Eli Raridan is healthy and full go right from the beginning, which I realize in theory he is, I think he'll impress. And I'll throw out Chris Smith at nose tackle.
Nice one. I want to throw another one out there because he was the story of fall camp the last time he was in fall camp. Maris Liafau.
Probably true.
That's an interesting story because I just don't know what kind of usage he's going to get. Like how Bertrand is. I'm telling you, like people at the beginning are kind of like, oh, Bertrand, because you're remembering Bertrand who was playing with one arm, and not the Bertrand that we saw last August, who was like, holy cow, God, this guy's around the ball all over the place. Because I think we're going to see that Bertrand again. I don't know what the rotation is going to be at linebacker. So I think
we are kind of assuming that Bertrand's going to share Mike with Bauer.
I wouldn't assume that. Yep.
I agree.
I want to tell you one thing. Bertrand's not going to be on the field instead of Maris Leofau in 2nd and 12 or 3rd and 7.
No, that's true.
So I know
that part's true.
What's that?
That's fine because Bertrand probably did something really good on first down.
Right. I know, but I'm saying the usage of Maris Leofau is going, there is no doubt he is the key to that speed package that we saw.
Yeah. I think every camp is the same. Like, in one way, like we want to see what's the 3rd and long package look like? How creative can you get? Who do you bump inside? Who do you bring in? Like, what's the secondary look like? So that all is going to be interesting.
Did we mention Jaden Mickey as a guy that's going to be the talk of camp? I don't know that we actually said that name, but he has a possibility to do that. And you know what? A healthy Blake Fisher, I think, is going to show us the exact same thing. This is why, Tim, that we saw in the spring when he first arrived. This is why I think your point is really good about the offensive line against the defensive line. I mean, I think Blake Fisher can handle just about any pass rusher there is.
Yeah, I want to see I want to see that whole top 5 look as good as the top 10 on the defensive line in some of our viewings.
That was the story of last fall camp. It was like, what's wrong with Isaiah Foskey? Blake Fisher's wrong with Isaiah Foskey.
Yeah. Your audio is kind of going in and out here on us, Pete. So just letting you, making you aware of that as we go to the last question of the day. And that's from Play Like a Champ 7. What's more likely, 10-2 or 8-4? And what's the biggest factor for your decision?
Basically, looking at a story idea for this, and it's 10-2 because Marcus Freeman is walking into a really good culture. They're a 10-2 culture, not an 8-4 culture anymore. Other than that, I have to watch them play football. But it's a 10-2 culture, not an 8-4 culture.
I agree with all that. I think that if this was a what's more likely 11-1, 9-3, I would go 9-3.
Right.
But
it's a good point.
It feels like a 10-2 culture is a really good way to put it.
Yeah, and talent wise, this is more of a 10-2 team that is 8-4.
Oh,
I mean, I realize that there are some pitfalls there, but they're not going to. I mean, I'm confident to say they're not going to lose every one of the perceived big games.
So
that's what,
right.
Or 3. I don't think they'll lose 3 of the 4.
I don't either. And then I feel like the culture can handle the other. Like this is where the Marcus Freeman question, "What does he learn?" thing comes into play, where you should be killing North Carolina or Boston College or Syracuse, but instead you're up 13 heading into the 4th quarter and they have the ball. Do you end up not winning that game somehow? Do you know what I'm saying? Where that would be salted away if he knew exactly how he wanted to handle everything.
Brian Kelly automatically put down for the last 5 years every time.
Yeah, Tim, you say culture. And I would just say the positive vibes coming out of this program. I mean, for Notre Dame to be 8-4, what would the reasoning be? I mean, now you could have a problem at quarterback, and I realize that, but I think the talent level and the depth of this program is much more 10-2 than it is 8-4.
Oh yeah. If you need me to get you to 8-4, lose to Ohio State, lose a close one to Clemson, lose a close one to USC, and blow a game. That's how you get 8-4.
Yeah. Which, like BYU, I'm not sure I would like. Oh, they blew the BYU game.
You have to kind of blow a game,
But Tim Priester's point is right. Like they're not going to lose. They're not going to 0-4 in the competitive game.
No, but I definitely could see a struggle against Boston College in November. Definitely, Boston College.
I kind of forecast one actually
because they're difficult to throw the ball against, and you still have a young quarterback throwing a ball against them. And I could see a game. Jurkovic's all hyped up. Jurkovic makes a play. The emotions swing a little bit. That game, just on the surface right now, concerns me a little bit as you look at it. That's it today for Irish Illustrated Insider. We will The instant analysis will come back into play here beginning this weekend when Notre Dame convenes for its first practice of the fall, Friday, August 5th. Thanks for joining us. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.